through mishap or otherwise, I've ended up with a very interesting and varied career. So what I do, let's just start there. So I work here at ARU, and what I do at ARU is I am a technical officer, and I look after 5 recording studios and a podcast studio, supporting a course called Audio and Music Technology, which is part of Music and Music Technology, which is in the Cambridge School of Creative Industries. And I have a really lovely job that I absolutely love. I get to work with lovely students like we have here. I get to procure equipment and keep up to date with what's happening in the audio visual industry that way. And also I work as a lecturer as well, and I teach audio for film. And part of what I love doing is extracurricular activities. So I like to upskill students and help them with their employability. So I run a podcast group, which is kind of on a bit of a hold at the moment because of the COVID situation. But that's just about really giving some crossover and transferable skills. And I think certainly within music and audio and film, a lot of these skill sets that we have are very transferable, and that kind of puts me where I am. And this is why I have quite a varied bouquet of skills. So that's what I do at ARU. Now I work as a freelancer as well. And what I do, as I said, it's not quite as easy to define. So Sarah picked up that very well, because being cross-discipline and multi-skilled within audio and film sometimes confuses people, and sometimes, strangely enough, with it being lots of different things that I do, I sometimes get pigeonholed into this. Quite often colleagues and friends will say, well, you're a jack of all trades. And I absolutely don't like being called a jack of all trades, because I'm not. I work within an area of maybe 3 skill sets that are all kind of interchangeable. And it kind of makes my career very interesting in that I get to do lots of things. So I put together this kind of mood board of my working life yesterday, and it made me realize there's so much wonderful and fun activities that I get to do and get paid to do, and I love it. So within that, I work as I came up with a definition for what my job, for what my skill set is, and it's really snappy. Multidisciplined audiovisual creative and technologist. That is so gangster and not cool at all, actually. So if anyone can think of a more, a shorter way of saying that without it being such a tongue twister, then I'm all ears. But let's look at the 3 areas that I work in, okay? Film and TV. So I work as a director. I direct music videos and promos and commercials and that kind of thing. So and I'm a camera operator and a director of photography at times. I spend a lot of time working with cameras, and I do post-production editing and sound design. In the audio field, I'm a musician, first and foremost. That's where I started out. But being a musician also led me to becoming a sound engineer. And being a sound engineer led me to become a video editor, because it's a very similar skill set. And the camera side of it, I've always been, ever since my father bought me a 35mm film stills camera in 1994, so I'm old. And that's kind of where my visual interest comes from. I also work in live events, so a lot of what I do, my skill set also lends itself to audiovisual technician work. I've been doing that for a very long time, and that means that I'm lucky enough to work as a video capture consultant for live events. And with that, I've had the pleasure of traveling all around the world over the last couple of years and specking up equipment for live video capture for the biggest advertising conference in the world. So I've been to Sydney, I've been to New York City, I've been to Mexico City. So it takes me around, but obviously that's on hold at the moment because of COVID. I do multi-camera directing, vision mix operating, which again, that's just editing, but live. So it's a skill set that crosses over. And I also work as a streaming broadcast technician. And actually, with the COVID situation, that side of my work has picked up a lot, because a lot of events can't continue, haven't been happening in person. We can't have attendees go to venues, so we've been doing it online. But what I'm here to talk about really is music videos. So looking at, because music videos that's the most fun part of what I do. It's really hard work, and it's been quite a journey to get where I am now from where I started. But in the context, being a filmmaker, I want to put a kind of story to this a little bit. So there is a background context to this, because my career has gone hand in hand, side by side, with a revolution of such. And the revolution was televised. And it's the third industrial revolution, which is the digital revolution. And in the context of filmmaking and music videos and all that kind of stuff, you know, it's looking at, you know, this is the definition. This is the Wikipedia definition that you should never quote in your lectures if you're a lecturer. A shift from the mechanical and analog electronic technology to digital electronics, which happened in the latter half of the 20th century. So essentially, I was born right at the beginning of it all kicking off. So nowadays we've got streaming platforms, we've got compact game consoles like the Switch. You can game on your phone, you can watch movies on your phone. When I was a kid, it was VHS and VCR. And this is part of my techiness, because I was the only one in my family who could program the VCR to record at certain times and the right channel while we're away on holiday. So that kind of that thing in itself gave me my kind of technical beginnings as such. But also, if you look at how that's changed into smartphones and smart TVs, it's been quite a massive journey. And with that, the camera technology as well has changed. Gaming as well. When I was a kid, we had a Commodore 64 when I was 5 or 6 years old, with amazing graphics, as you can see. And fast forward 30 years, and we have got the PS5 has just been launched with its very poor graphics. Now, I mean, look at that. It's amazing. So there's been a huge development, and my career has ran in tandem with the digital revolution, and it has enabled it entirely. In fact, I would say of my generation, that's people born in the early 80s, maybe the late 70s, depending on how old you are. We were there before the internet. We were there before smartphones, and we saw the technology launch. We learned to use it, and we brought it into our working lives. Whereas a lot of younger people will have been born into it, which is great. But I have a kind of understanding of what it was like before and what it's like now. And I was talking about false starts. So this is my first fortuitous false start. So this is me, Mark, at the age of 16, and I go to Long Road Sixth Form College. I wanted to go to Long Road Sixth Form College because it seemed, at the time, it still is a great place to study. And I decided that I wanted to do music technology and film and the things that I thought I wanted to do. But this was 1990. I'm not going to say. But this, I was told I must do science, and I'm not against doing science. But let's look at what I wanted to study. I wanted to do music tech, film studies, and I wanted to do music. And I was also quite academically bright, and I was convinced that taking more pure subjects, such as chemistry, geography, I like geography actually, but then, you know, it's kind of a science-based one, and English for my A-levels. And this did not work out well for me. I knew what I wanted to do, and it wasn't that. But I carried on, and I didn't do particularly well, and I actually ended up turning up to the film studies classes and the music tech classes, even though I wasn't enrolled on them. And I should have just switched, but I didn't. And so I didn't do particularly well in my A-levels, and that's okay though, because that doesn't mean that that's the end of it all. You can still, I could still see what I was going to do. But it's interesting, from what I was told to do, what I wanted to do when I was 16 versus where I am now. What do I do now? Well, I work in music technology. I'm a filmmaker, and I'm also a musician. So I've ended up where I wanted to be anyway, despite the false start. But I think in a sense, that false start just made me more determined that that is what I wanted to do. So anyway, I leave Long Road with just one useful A level and one not so good A level and one completely ungraded. So I'm being honest with you here. So that's my false start one. So what do I do? Do I leave and join a film crew, or what do I do? I think that at the time I wanted to be a rock and roll star. So I was a musician, so I carried on with my band, and I carried on doing that. I'm still doing it now, but this particular band was the one that was going to go somewhere, and it kind of did. So 5 years of that, and things weren't going quite well, but we were in the studio. We had a couple of record labels, but I ended up not in the band just at the time where Columbia Records came swooping down to sign the band. So I missed out on touring with some of my favorite bands of all time, Bruce Springsteen, Deftones, just loads of them. So I missed out on that. So that was my next false start. But never mind, what was I doing outside of this? Well, the digital revolution was happening, and camera chip technology, video camera chip technology, was developing massively. This was what I started to learn on when I became an audiovisual technician. It's a Sony DSR 500, I believe. Large format, probably cost about £20,000, probably more actually at the time. Maybe it was more like 30,000 or something like that. But Sony launched a small format DV cam broadcast quality camera, handheld, and you could pick one up for a couple of grand. So I saved up my money, and it was the best decision I ever made. And I was still in the band in 2003, by the way. And that enabled me to start my career. And it was like the broadband was just starting as well. So I started making corporate videos for local businesses. And filmmaking had become democratized, and it's still happening today. There's the democratization of filmmaking, which is through camera technology, has really made a huge difference. And because it doesn't cost an arm and a leg, it still costs quite a lot, but it used to be so expensive to make high quality videos. Even that was low, just about broadcast. But it enabled me to get my first contract. Now, I don't know if you've ever been to a karaoke bar, or ever seen a karaoke DVD, but somebody has to make those background videos. Now, some of them are just words on a screen, and others are actual like little music videos with people acting out sort of dramatic and terrible narratives. But I made over 300 of these, and this is when I was about 23 years old, so I've given away my age now. And at the time, at 23, it was £300 a pop for each video. And I was like, take it, I'll do it, send them my way. So me and my brother started doing them. We were maybe turning over 10, 15, maybe 20 in a month. And that gave us a real boost to get our careers going. So with that, I decided that we would use our equipment and volunteer our services to go to city music festivals run by Mr. Tony Wilson. Tony Wilson was the guy who discovered Joy Division, basically. And he was the manager of New Order, and he ran the Hacienda nightclub in Manchester. So this was my first sort of experience of that. And so we did this festival for 3 years, and it enabled me to get in touch with famous people like Peter Hook and the Happy Mondays. And Peter Hook was from Joy Division and New Order. So we were mixing in these scenes and shooting lots and lots of live videos, which gave us an amazing portfolio. So my brother and I, because we worked together on a lot of this stuff. Fantastic. So we're going to get our first big music video with a big budget. And this is probably when we're about 25, 26, which even by today's standards is young for directing. And this is the only still I have of this. It was a guy called Lorenz. It was a pop video. It was fairly high budget. It was about 35 grand for the budget. But it was interesting because turning up on the set at 25, many people didn't take it seriously. Who are you turning up here? Self-shooter, what's that? Everyone was pigeonholed into like, I just do light. I just do like tripods. I just fixed cameras. But we were the first generation to come through that could do all, that was learning to do all of it, and were able to do all of it. And again, that's where I got a lot of my diverse skill set from. But this video was a false start because it was big budget. But unfortunately, the management ran away before they paid their bill, leaving me with a £28,000 bill, which didn't help very much at all. But on the positive side, I was in the industry. I've been working with professionals for the very first time on a big set, and the rest continued. And luckily for us, a new art form of music was coming out, grime. Lethal Bizzle was the poster boy of grime at the time. And there was a new music TV channel called Channel U. Now, let me just tell you about Channel U quickly, because Channel U had very, very low quality music videos on it. And most of them were pretty lame, if I'm honest, and a bit misogynistic, if I'm honest with you at times. But we started making these, and we brought a new type of production value to it. So we got to work with Lethal Bizzle. We got to work with Josh Osho as well. And these were the videos that really broke us. So Lethal Bizzle was known as the granddad of grime. And because the way technology was changing as well, with the DSLR camera, we got ourselves one of these. That enabled us to use helicams, which eventually became the modern drone. And we actually used the first, we did the first music video that actually used a helicam. And this is a shot from it, and it was for Lethal Bizzle. So we were bringing a high production value at a reasonably low cost to these videos. And it was paying off really nicely. So here's one video. You can see it's got 650,000 views. That was back in 2011. So we were developing that way, and that got the attention of a director's agency who signed us up. And then we got to pitch on bigger videos. And then, you start getting more inquiries. There are cold inquiries that are interesting. And around about 2013, I was flown out to New York City to work with Paloma Faith and film a promo for a live concert for Paloma Faith. And that was like, wow, you kind of think we've made it. But it doesn't really work like that, because that's just one job, and this is the way freelancing works. You just move on to the next thing, or you get more work from something else. But we were lucky enough we got to work with Paloma Faith. That was an amazing experience, which led to more like promos. And my brother was really heading up the fashion industry side of behind the scenes filming, and we were lucky enough to work and film Rihanna as well. And there was, and aside from this, there was lots of other work going on at the same time as well with the music videos. And more recently, we've been working with Dua Lipa. Now, we've done 3 campaigns with Dua Lipa. We've done Foot Locker. More recently, we did Pepe Jeans. And I was principal camera on 2 of them, and my brother was the director. So it's, despite the false starts, managing to get, to build a career from that in itself was great. So what I'm going to do, I want to play, it would be a good time now to, let me just stop sharing my screen for a moment. Right, I'm going to play a video. Now, Microsoft Teams doesn't always work with audio, but we'll give it a go, and I'll talk through some of what we did. But your showreel essentially is where creatives put their more recent and the most prolific work. And this is my current showreel here. I'm going to keep the volume fairly low so it doesn't go strange on the... But again, working with fashion brands, mixing live animation with live action. This was actually a green screen shoot that was then animated. And then essentially, just lots and lots of music videos. So this should give you a bit of an idea. This is all work that I've done with camera in hand. So this is my director of photography reel. I get to compose quite a lot of the music on these as well. So what you're hearing is actually me. So that's just all through working with different connections and picking up new clients. So that's my show reel. Right. So I want to do a little case study of my most recent project that I've been working on. Now, there's a band called Morcheeba. I don't know what the age of our audience is here, but Morcheeba, they're sort of having a sort of a renaissance, should we say, because they were a really, really prolific band in the late 1990s. And they had Big Calm was their biggest album. That was platinum. And as well as that, they had 3 gold albums as well. So the brief with these guys, and actually what was great about this is because usually with music videos is that you pitch, and if the artist likes it, you get to make it. And a lot of your time is spent pitching and not getting anywhere. But what was great with Morcheeba is they came to us. And that's always a really good tip. That's always a really good nod, and it shows that you're in the right place and doing the right thing. So the project with these guys was to do 3 videos. One, Sounds of Blue, which is what I'm going to show you about, which is the single coming out next month. And another one called The Moon, which we've already shot, which is a half animated, half live action on green screen. That's going to look fantastic as well. And we've got a live performance, which is in planning. So this Sounds of Blue, what we wanted to do with this was to create a kind of false underwater world. Sort of, I'll just show you how it went because it's kind of hyper real. So anyway, we got on the set, and this is what the lighting gaffer had done for us. Kind of cool, but it looked like a Bee Gees video. So the director of photography, who was Thomas English, really good Steadicam up as well. He was like, "This is not Bee Gees," So we all had a good laugh about that, and then we redressed the set to give us this seabed kind of look. And how we did that is we actually got, I think it was something like 5 tons of sand to be shoveled in to the studio, and we had a few of we had quite a lot of, as many as we were allowed during COVID, and this was shot in tier 3, so we were allowed to do it. And we had a few of my students on it as well, and I love doing that. I really like taking students and giving them work experience on a real set. I think it's really, if I've got the ability to do that, so I think if it helps them start their connections, then it's only a good thing. And that's the on-set monitor. That's what's coming through the camera that we're looking at. So what we've got going on here is we wanted to give the impression that we have currents flowing underwater. And a great way to do that is one of the, I'll just say here, one of the things that my company does really well is stretch a budget. That is our unique selling point. So we can take a budget and make it look 3 times the cost with a few kind of rough and ready techniques. So this is what it looked like. Now that looks really cool. Yeah, you've got the kind of the water shimmering above. We've got a projection onto the sand to give a kind of shimmery look, and that's Sky, the singer there, looking like she's kind of underwater. And the other thing that we do here is that we want it to be, most music videos you kind of shoot in slow motion anyway, but what we do is, a little movie magic tip, is that we play the track twice as fast. So Sky there has to learn to sing it twice the speed and do her choreography at twice the speed. And then when you play it back at normal speed, it's in slow motion, but the lip sync is there in real time. So that's a little tip for you out there. So here's one of our students, Charlie. So this is the rough and ready element of it. What you don't see, you see these beautiful images, and behind the scenes, we've got some material and some fans or wind machines. And we're basically just going to blow them at some material and make it look like this. So that's all the way across the set. You can see that this is the effect that we get from flying this transparent, translucent material. And it's quite a hard thing to do. We've got, there's 4 people on each side holding material and blowing fans. And it doesn't always work, and sometimes it works, but, enough to get a really good performance. So we got 3 or 4 good performances out of it. And then we have another set piece. These are my students as well. So we had to make a little boat. We had this so we dressed it to make it look like it was kind of like wood. It was a little bit hokey, if I'm honest. But then you see what we did with it. We put it on a set up on a little riser, and we can see the wind machines blowing around underneath, and that's making all this material move and look a little bit like they're on a sea, like sailing on the sea. Admittedly, it is hyper. It's not supposed to look real. It's supposed to look kind of cartoony and hyper real and a bit odd. So this is my brother, who I've been mentioning a little bit. There, he looks a little bit like me. He's probably a bit better looking than me, to be fair. But look here, somebody who's not wearing their mask properly. So part of my job on this as first assistant director was to make sure everyone's doing things right. So it's like your nose is sticking out over your mask. It's not doing anything. So that was that. So this is what that looked like once we shot it. Sky and Ross there sailing on the sea. It looks a little bit like what's that, In the Night Garden at the end, I think. I kind of thought it did a bit. So yeah, that's kind of how that looked in the end. So what I'd like to do now is this is the end of that. I'd like to show you, if I can, what that looks like. Now I'll just play it, and hopefully the audio will be okay. But yeah, this is the combination. This video is doing really well. I think it's already on. It's released at the beginning of the month. It's had 880,000 views already, so it's going in the right direction. So it's good to be part of it. So I'll play that.
A sort of stone silence sat on that boat, floating out. The waters left me open. All my emotions fog my lenses. Trusting in a stranger, there's nowhere to run. Enjoy it. It's all about the here and now. Illuminate the darkness. The waves awoke emotive emotions. Whilst resisting this surge to breathe as I'm swimming down free when I'm sinking down.
Just going to pause it there because I just want to talk to you about some of the techniques we're using. So you could see the slow motion, and you can see that Sky was singing in slow motion, but her lips are in sync. And then we've got this shot here. So what we did is we had just a black background, and we had a trampoline, and we had Sky jump on the trampoline, and we shot it at something like 300 frames per second to get that really slow motion effect. And then we animated some bubbles coming out of her mouth as well. And then there's one where she falls into as if she's falling into the sea, which we did the same way, but we just reoriented the camera as well.
Last breath in, closed eyes, nose hold, equalize, pulling down on the bound, descending, deep ending, earth undefined. Free dive, amplified, sounds of blue, floating particles as the coast clear. Don't look up, don't look down, I might drown into you. The waves awoke, emotive emotions, whilst resisting this urge to breathe as I'm swimming down free when I'm sinking down.
So there's now Ross doing the same thing. What's interesting here is we're now moving to the last section of the video, and it's what you can do with a plastic sheet, some lights and a wind machine. It's actually could be quite effective. As you'll see, we're literally using a plastic sheet just coming up now.
The waves awoke, emotive emotions, was resisting this urge to breathe as I'm swimming down free when I'm sinking down.
Yeah, so that was a real joy to work on. And what was great about it really was that Sky and Ross were really lovely people. It's not always the case with artists. Some can be a little challenging, especially when they're at the top of their careers. But yeah, the real joy to work with those guys. So thanks very much for listening to that.
Thanks, Mark. We've just got a question here in the chat about how did you do the air bubbles? I think you said you animated them, but I didn't know if there was anything you wanted to.
Yeah, really. I mean, it was just a filter overlay that we did in After Effects, which is part of the Adobe Creative Cloud package, which we have a site-wide license here at Anglia Ruskin for. So that covers Photoshop, Illustrator, Adobe Premiere Pro, and After Effects, and everything else that comes with Creative Cloud. So that's, yeah, we did it in After Effects.
Thanks, Mark. That was really interesting. So I'm going to open up to any questions now. If any of you have any questions for Mark, I'll just pick up on a few things, Mark, that I found really interesting. I don't know if anyone here attended the Creative Careers talk on Monday that James did, but James talked very much about skills, not jobs, especially as we kind of move forward into the next phase of the digital revolution. And I kind of thought your talk really actually showed how true that is in your case, for example, that it's about your skills rather than a specific job title that you kind of sit under. So I thought that was really useful. You also mentioned about portfolio, and actually it's about building your portfolio and kind of showcasing what you do and kind of moving forward with that. And I did just want to touch on as well the fact that I don't know if anyone noticed the fact that you didn't mention university at all. Now, Mark's actually quite an interesting case because he does have a master's degree in film and TV production.
That's right,
Correct? From ARU. But he didn't actually do a first degree at university because he went straight into industry. And I just wondered if any of you had any kind of questions about that. you know, because, you know, Mark, I think, was kind of quite fortunate, Mark, in terms of your sort of timings and how things developed in the industry at the time, and you were able to develop your skill set along with that. Do you think that is an opportunity that young people have now, or, you know, are technologies such that everyone has access, and does the fact that everyone has the same kind of access a problem, or what do you think about that?
Interestingly, well, it goes back to like when I was starting out, people within the industry didn't understand what we were doing, and this is before YouTube, and YouTube developed during this. Social media didn't exist then either, and everyone was worried that the democratization of filmmaking, for example, was going to kill the industry, because the music industry was going through this no one paying for it situation, which is kind of where we are now, and it's difficult for artists. But I didn't see it that way, and I think it's the same now. Where we're at now from where I was, what me and my colleagues were predicting is that there's going to be more opportunities to get into creative industries, particularly in filmmaking, because you've only got to look at the platforms. Now, every business that's like a commercial business wants to advertise, and they want to advertise on social media. That is an opportunity for people like me, people like younger people coming up, to find the work. My nephew, for example, he's working for a creative agency, actually. And he's 24 years old now. And he's been there, and really he got to do that from building up his profile as a YouTuber with him and his friends. And that's led him into this really flourishing career as an advertising creative. And he's probably going to well overtake my career goals. You know, he's doing great. And actually, he's ended up sending work my way. I got to compose some music for a Subway commercial. You know, Subway, the sandwich shop. So I think there's more opportunities, whether it's in social media. Every business needs an online presence. Every business needs a video. Every business needs a marketing behind that. Every business, there's so many layers to all of these opportunities. I think that I think the current generation who are younger, you know, are set up really well. And I think with the technology, even smartphones, you know, my brother's got an iPhone 12, and the footage that we've been shooting on that is unbelievable. And this just wasn't possible when I was younger, so it's a really exciting time.
And just another question from me. Oh, sorry, we've actually got some. Do you think going to college and uni help with the process of getting into the film creative industry, or is being self-taught better? That's an interesting question. Thank you for that.
It is an interesting question. I think that one helps the other. If you're going to go to college and just do the bare bones of a course and just kind of float your way through it, you're never really going to get a career in that chosen field. And it's the same for many courses in many chosen fields. You could look at law, you know, law if you wanted. Just by doing a law degree doesn't entitle you to a full career in it. But what I would say is if you are studying it, and do study it, because you will have access to equipment that you will not be able to have access to if you're starting out just on your own. But what you can do while you're at university, you can use this equipment to build up your portfolio quickly, and a much quicker time than I was able to do it. So by the time you leave, I think you have to have extracurricular activities. You should be, if you're into movie making, make movies with your friends, not just the stuff that you're doing for your coursework. Diversify a little bit. So, you know, what other skill set, what skills can I pick up? It's really useful for somebody who's a camera op, for example, to know about sound, because sound is 50% of a movie, for example, you know, and having an understanding of that is vital, really. So yeah, I think one complements the other. So yeah, study and learn by yourself.
Excellent, thank you. I've got a question here from Elisa. I'm currently studying art, graphics and maths, and I want to get into animation, specifically for film. Elisa, I will just say you probably want to come along to our VFX talk on Thursday afternoon with Chris Cook, who's pretty big in the industry, because there'll be a lot of insight from that. Could I also do live action alongside animation? I don't know if that, I'm not quite sure what it means by live action, but you may do.
I don't know in terms of courses, but what I can tell you, my next video project or my current video project is exactly that. I've got a digital animator. He's also very good at After Effects. And so what we've done is it's hard to describe it really, but we're doing this kind of silhouetted, almost rotoscoped kind of thing, shot live action. And then the animator is he's doing it, working on it right now, spending all these waking hours animating points, building up a scene and backgrounds and all this kind of stuff. So it's absolutely a great way to go. In fact, as a lecturer, I'm working on a collaborative project. So our audio students are working with the animators to create soundscapes for these like 30-second animations. So all this collaboration, it's the right way to go. And I think if you're looking to get into animation and work with it with film, you're on a good path from what I can tell.
Thanks. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, university is a great place to collaborate with different people, musicians, filmmakers, animators, all that sort of thing. It's, a way of making those connections that are there for you already. And obviously, Mark sounds like he'd be a great person to know as well. So, question here from Jack. Would you say that it is a challenge to get yourself recognised in the film industry, with it being very popular? And how would you put yourself out there after university?
Well, the best thing to do is first part of your question, it's difficult. It's notoriously difficult. It's always been difficult. But creative arts are like that. All of them, whether you're looking at fashion design, whether you're looking at photography, to get yourself noticed, it's really about getting that portfolio. And what I would do is how do you meet contacts? Now, I get asked this from a lot of students, and I've had some people ask me for my contact list, which is just never going to happen. I've spent 20 years building it up. But what I can do from my side of it is let's say, well, why don't you come on set with me and you can start making connections with the people that are on the same level as you, because you're going to be gradually building up. So when you leave university, one of the things that I often say to students is that having a degree, does not mean that you're a director now. Even if you've directed films for your course or whatever, you're going to leave and you're going to start back at the bottom, right? But the advantage that you have is that you will have spent 3 years working at it and studying it, and that's given you a great leg up. So when you do get to the point where you build your way up the crew, you might start off shoveling 5 tons of sand for me, but the next video, my producer might say, "Oh, that guy was great," or that lass was brilliant. Can I have their contact number? Be yes, and that's your first contact. So they'll call you up for some paid work, and it might just be production assistant, but that's before you specialize into either camera, sound, or lighting, you can get some set experience and kind of work out where you want to be really, and that's the way I would do it.
Yes, I think that's really useful, Mark, because things do change, don't they? And actually having you've got a varied skill set, and that's the thing. Rather than just fixing on one thing, you can get to find out what you're good at and where you fit in the industry, which I think is really helpful. And university is a great place for experimenting and finding out what works for you.
Absolutely, and I can't emphasize enough. Like, you'll never in your life. This is why going to university. I wish I'd had. My brother did, so I used to just nick his equipment, which is a bit wrong. But you're never going to have that opportunity. You're never going to have that situation again where you've got access to so many different people and skills. Whether it's, at the moment, gaming. Look at gaming. Whoever that was asked me about the animation. You might even consider gaming as an option. Because gaming industry is bigger than the film industry right now, and it's growing. And with the 5th generation of consoles coming out, it's just there's so much to be done. But you're not going to, you've got access to actors, performers, dancers, musicians, camera operators, film producers, fashion, set design, audio technologists. It's just incredible. Yeah.
Thanks, Mark. Are there any last questions for Mark before we wrap it up for today? You can see that I've posted in the chat. We have got some more sessions later on in the week, including one on VFX, as I mentioned, And I've also posted, I'm just about to post a feedback form. If you wouldn't mind just filling that in. You know, we want to offer these sessions for you because we think they're really helpful, and we'd like to offer them every year. So any feedback that you can give us would be great. I can see that Hayley's just typing in there. If you've got any more questions, Mark will be very happy to answer
I will.
them.
I've just popped a link in there as well if anyone wants to see that video in full quality. Thanks.
You're very welcome. Well, if there are no more questions, thank you very much for joining us here at ARU for Discover Creative Careers, and we hope it's been useful for you. Do check out our other events, and as I say, if you can fill out the feedback form, that'd be great. Thank you very much, Mark. That was really interesting. Found it really interesting and informative. Oh, one question about what software do you use?
Software do I use? Oh, it depends what I'm doing. So I use Premiere Pro for my editing. Other editing software are available, but that's supported at ARU, so that's, if you come here, you probably want to use that. I sometimes I use Pro Tools for audio, and I also use Logic. It just depends what I'm doing. If I'm writing music, I use Logic. If I'm mixing music, I use Pro Tools. If I'm editing videos, I use Premiere.
That's great, and that's all software that you could use at ARU, and you know, find out your way around. And people like Mark will be there to support you with that. Okay, thank you all very much for attending. Thank you, Mark. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.